Hey everybody, Papa Todd Takes. I am Papa Todd and we are here for another edition of Papa Todd's Toolbox and what I'm starting to call 5 minutes to Monday, where it's just a weekly rundown of OSHA violations or citations that have been issued, proposed penalties, and then pulling from those a topic to talk on a little bit. And then we'll have one weekly topic where we can focus on when we get back out into the job site, our plant, whatever, and we can move forward and do that. And if we do that 50 times a year, every program will have been reviewed and checked out at least once a year, right? So that's the way we want to start doing this. We get working in, so we're never sitting around there when OSHA comes up. We're not in a panic. We have all our stuff in a row. We know it's been verified at least within the last year. So moving through to this week is the week of July 18th to the 24th, 2026. Now, I'm banking up a lot of these, and I'll probably be releasing these at a later date. I'm going to release them as I go here, but before I start really pushing out the content, we'll probably get a bank of these. But OSHA's, for the most part, you know, it's not like these violations just happen. If they're issuing citations, it likely happened 6 months ago or more by the time they're doing all this. So this kind of travels with the territory. In fact, I think one, if it's not this week, it was last week. It happened over a year ago. So but these are good things to focus on. So it was a relatively light week this week for new enforcement actions. However, there was a big focus on some new rules or some rulemaking activities. So we're going to go through that. Let's go with the top enforcement. It was a Florida contract roofer, and they have $350,000 now worth of proposed fines or a proposed penalty of that amount. Inspectors observed employees in a couple of different locations of this same contractor, residential roofing, working more than 10 feet off the ground with no fall protection on. So, and it sounds like this was repeat. They had been caught in the past several times, and every time, I think 7 times in 3 years. I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it. 7 inspections in 3 years, and there was fall protection violations every time. Folks, if you or your company are getting fined or cited for issues with OSHA, you got to get them cleaned up, because they are going to come back and they are going to check, and repeat violations are willful, right? So anyway, they got nailed with 2 willful and 4 repeat violations. So for the most part, it was all about fall protection. They didn't have that on. They had missing fall protection trainings. They were using nail guns, no eye protection. That stuff can fire back, right? You got to have it. So, and then the ladders, more kind of fall protection. The ladders were not extended 36 inches past the roof line. So everybody's aware of it. If you're using an extension ladder like we do at home, right, and you set it up and you're going to crawl up and you want to get out there onto the roof, that step ladder, or the extension ladder should extend at least 36 inches past the roof line where you're going to step off at. One, it gives you a good handhold, a lot better handhold to manage that getting off and getting back on. Anybody knows, if you've been up and down, the hairiest part of all the stuff you're doing is that transition from the roof onto those ladders. So that's the reason for that rule. So that brings up, so let's talk about this, because we're early on in the Todd takes on these. Let's talk about OSHA violations and the penalties. Everybody kind of wonders, that it's a kind of a mystery to most people. What are the violations? So there's different types of violation. They range from, and I have these written down so I don't forget, right? So other than serious, and your penalties for an other than serious violation is anywhere from $0 all the way up to $16,550 per violation. And you can have multiple violations in one visit, guys. Right? It could be multiple exposures, and every time an employee touched that tool, it could be, right? So per violation, it can get expensive really quick. Posting requirements, right? You have to have your OSHA logs posted at a certain time. You have to have your federal OSHA posters up, workers' comp posters in some states. All these postings, they're going to check to see, do you have things posted like you're supposed to in a conspicuous location? And usually that means a place where all employees walk by. So for instance, break rooms, a lot of times you have a board, or entrances, main entrances where employees walk through. You have those big glass panels, right? And you get those postings. Make sure those are posted. Make sure those are current. On the new federal OSHA posters, you can scan it. It's got a little barcode on there. You can scan it. and it'll tell you if you have the most current version. Quick and easy, and then if you don't have it, you can call up your state, order it, get it in. So other than serious and posting requirements, those are both $0 to $16,550 per violation. Well, why would they range that high for posting requirements? Well, kind of depends. Do you have, by the time they're done with the inspection, do you just have a rampant runaway, no good safety program? Or do you have your stuff together and you're making an honest attempt? That's going to weigh in on the, I'd have a hard time seeing a posting requirement be worth $16,550 unless there was some other stuff tied into it, like maybe for instance, if they find out during employee interviews and some of the actions on there that, the management is intimidating workers not to report injuries and things like that, right? And they're having that hidden, and they don't have the poster up there, so the employees don't have the opportunity to see the phone number how to call OSHA, right? That could be something that tipped it over, and they're just like, man, you got so much stuff going on here. That Florida roofer, and I'm going to refrain from calling out names of the individual companies that are getting hit here, just in fairness to them, because I haven't seen the back and forth and the final call and all that good stuff. So other than serious and posting requirements. Now, the next level up would be considered a serious. Serious violations range from $1,085 to $16,550 per violation. So if it's a serious finding, you're going to have at least a $1,000 citation, right? Or at least an initial proposal. If you have a repeat violation, so let's say you're in residential roofing and you got nailed for a fall protection violation 2 years ago. OSHA comes back, they have your history, they know it's on there, they come back and they say, hey, we got found again. Well, your violation now starts at $4,256 and goes up to $165,514. So there is a drastic jump when you go from other than serious to serious. Okay? Now, willful violations. They start at $11,823 and go up to that $165,514 max. Are not messing around. Willful means you knew about it and just ignored it. Okay? So a repeat could be something that you're just having a hard time wrangling. You're trying to stomp it out, but it keeps popping up because you have all these individuals running around, something like that. And and so your way of managing it, you're trying, but it isn't working. That's probably kind of what a repeat would be, versus a willful where you're just like, screw it, we're not going to fix it. Now you start at almost $12,000 per violation. Again, these are per violation. It's not per OSHA visit. It's per violation they find. They can find dozens of the same violation. So, and then finally, failure to abate. So once OSHA's come in and they found violations on you, they hit you with your citations. And so at that closing conference, when you're going through, and we'll go through the whole OSHA inspection project, that might be a good one for next week. I'll go through the inspection process next week. But the failure to abate means that you go through a closing conference and they say, you need to fix this, and you say, okay, and you agree upon a date that will be fixed by. Because sometimes it can be right away. I can do it today. Other times it's like, hey, I gotta purchase guardrails and stuff like this and get a contractor, and it's going to take me some time, and they may give you 60, 90 days, something like that. So that's got to be agreed upon. Well, they're going to come back and they're going to verify. Sometimes they'll take pictures. You can show them pictures and receipts and all this kind of stuff, and do it via mail or online. Other times they might come back in just to verify, because especially if you cast some doubt on them that they're not quite trustworthy of you, they might come back in, and let's say you haven't abated it by that date, you haven't taken care of the issue. Every single day past that abatement date, it's $16,550 per day, and it's usually capped at 30 days. But 16,000, that's 50 grand, right? Or that's 500 grand. Geez, 500 grand, right? I didn't add the zero. So it goes quick. If something comes up and all of a sudden your abatement date isn't going to work, you better get on the phone and call them and work with them. They're usually reasonable. They will usually work with you. They're not going to turn away and let you snow job them, right? but they're reasonable and they'll let you work with them if you've shown them good faith efforts. I have never had one when you showed good faith effort not to be willing to work with you. Okay, so there's that. For serious and above, so for serious violations, repeat, willful, anything like that, they have gravity-based penalty systems. So now we're starting talking about that range, right? We talked about that range from 1,000 to 16,000, and then 11,000 up to $165,000. Well, what determines that, right? So there's gravity-based penalties, or GBPs. Those are assigned, and so there's 3 levels. There's high gravity, which means it's high severity, like what are the results of somebody getting hurt from this hazard, right? High, low, or medium, right? And then probability. So it's like a risk matrix, if you're used to the risk matrix, right? So severity and probability, or likelihood of it happening, right? So that would be high. Moderate gravity is something that's low to medium severity, right? You might end up getting a contusion or a small cut, something like that. I don't know where a broken bone, maybe a broken finger would be smaller than a broken femur. I'm not sure how they weigh that in there, but low to medium severity versus an amputation, death, something like that, right? And then the severity is greater probability, or high severity. Oh no, low to medium severity with great probability would be moderate. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Low to medium severity with greater probability is more likely somebody's going to get hurt, but it's not going to be a major injury. Or high severity, likelihood of an amputation, losing an eye, something like that, but it's got a lesser probability. It's kind of saying, you know, something extreme would have to happen in order for that to happen, right? So that would be a moderate gravity. So it would end up higher than your minimum, somewhere in the middle, that's somewhere in that range. And then you have low gravity, which means you have a low severity and a lesser probability, right? So somebody's going to get a bruise and it's probably not going to happen very often, or a cut and it's not going to happen very often. That would be something like that. So gravity-based penalties, that weighs in on that huge range of penalties that you could have. And again, how you treat the inspectors and how you treat the inspection, can you fix things that they're finding as they walk through your facility? That's all gets taken into. They're like, oh, these guys take safety seriously, we're not going to get in. And just don't get so defensive, and don't be rude and obnoxious to them, because they're people just trying to do their job too. We all know as safety leaders what it's like for somebody just to hate on you just for doing your job, right? So anyway, keep that in mind. So then there's also fines for repeated other than serious violations. So $472 for the first one, $1,182 for the second, and then for the third one it's $2,364. $2,364 fine. Okay, that's repeated other than serious violation. Minor ones, but they keep finding it, right? So walkways are blocked, or your people keep putting pallets halfway into a walking aisle, something like that, right? That would probably be other than serious. So take those into consideration. So they take into consideration what? They take in the severity, the number of employees exposed. So the bigger the company, the bigger the fine. That's just the way it ends up going to be, because you have more individuals that probably walk past that or do lock out, tag out, whatever that penalty may be. The history with OSHA. Do you have a good, solid history? Do you work for a company that works and has achieved OSHA VPP and kept that OSHA VPP certification? Or are you a company that's kind of, fly by night? You're not doing your safety, you're intimidating your employees, that kind of history, right? Do you get a lot of call-in complaints? Is there a lot of high incident rates with violations that we found attached to them? And then again, it goes back, good faith effort to comply. Are you trying to comply, right? You don't have to be perfect. They'll take it easier on you if you show that you're actually trying, right? So that was our enforcement discussion for the week. Let's move on now. And so what else are they doing? This is heavy rulemaking. So OSHA has reopened numerous proposed rulemaking records on July 22nd, so just this week. So they're looking into the standards on lead, formaldehyde, methylene chloride, one I can't pronounce, cadmium, benzene, asbestos, several other substances in the health standards. So they're going into the health standards and looking at them, and did a little bit of digging. I didn't get as far into it as I would have liked to. But most of the proposals look like they'd modernize and kind of streamline things and make it easier, kind of try to lump them together where they can, so it's not so confusing that you have to keep track of so many different things. So they talk about removing some of the duplicative respiratory standards to better align with 1910-134, which is respiratory protection. So silica remains active OSHA education and enforcement concern. So a little bit about silica. You better have a silica work plan. If anything in your plant involves drilling into concrete or cement floors, right? Silica naturally occurs, and in those dusts, when it gets airborne, it can cause some issues. So have a plan. Are you wet vacuuming? Are you pouring? If you're cutting with a floor saw, is it water based, so it's flooding it with water, so keeping that dust down? Are you monitoring that? And then for people that's past certain exposures, a lot of contractors, there's health things they have to do in monitoring their employees to watch out for silicosis, right? So control your dust from cutting, grinding, and finishing. Even sometimes a little handheld drill, you can get them with the source capture on them. And if you don't have that, you can have that, get some dust masks on, get somebody down there with a vacuum, a shop vac, and just suck those dusts up as they're going. Try to keep it from getting airborne and creating a cloud of potential dust containing silica. Okay, so there's that. So going back to what we talked about with the roofing contractor, got me to thinking, let's be a good week to talk about our fall protection standards, right? Most of us have to deal with this one way or another. So 29 CFR 1910.23, that's general industry, talking about that fall protection. 4 foot, kicks in at 4 foot from floor level, 4 foot unprotected from floor level, right? And then in the construction standards, it's 29 CFR 1910.501. Now, general industry, you have to have fall protection 4 feet off the ground. You get into construction, they give you up to 6 feet off the ground. And then if you're on scaffolding, it's 10 feet off the ground. If you're in shipyards and stuff like that, I think there's a 5 and a 6 foot standard over there. So the fall protection standards vary based on what you do for a living. So make sure you go into know your standard and go into it. Again, general industry for me, and so that's 1926.23. So what are we going to look for when we go out into the plants? So when overhead work from heights is being done, we have to have an awareness of fall protection. And fall protection can be fall prevention or it can be fall arrest, right? So fall prevention stops the fall from happening. If we're thinking about guardrails or like a rolling work platform with the handrails on it, that is fall prevention, right? It keeps you from falling off, from falling over. And your guardrails per OSHA have to withstand a force of 200 horizontal pounds, right? Basically enough to a standard person, if you were to kind of accidentally lean up against it, it's not going to collapse under your weight. So that's fall prevention. Next is you have fall arrest. So think of a body harness, right? Body harness, your lanyards, everything like this, netting, right? Stuff like that. That is fall arrest. What does that mean? That means a fall has already happened. It is mitigating the damage or the results of that fall. So fall prevention is always the best thing you can do first, right? Guardrails, stuff like that. You can get restraint, like restraint lanyards is a lanyard that doesn't have your rip stitch on it, or an SRL that only goes so far. Sometimes you feel these steel cables, they're like 6 foot long, and you attach that to yourself, and that keeps you from getting to that edge, right? It keeps you from getting to the hazard. And so those are things to consider when you're working on it. What happens if I have to go up on the roof and I have to work within 15 feet of the edge or within 6 feet of the edge? What do I need to do? Go into the standards, see what you have to do. So that would be like your positioning system. So a lot of times you see somebody wearing a body harness and they have like a belt, right? power linesmen and stuff like that. That's fall positioning, right? That's body positioning, is help keeping and holding it in place. It is not fall arrest. It is not anything like that, right? If you get overhead and you got like overhead works being done on an upper level, and you have guardrail system and everything like that, make sure you got to have your toe boards too, right? Got to have guardrails and toe boards, and there are specific standards in there for those guardrails and toe boards too. So go take a look at that. If you are wearing a personal fall arrest system or a body harness, make sure your employees, it's documented that they've been trained how to properly inspect and wear those, right? So how do I properly inspect? I go through, get the manufacturer's booklet. You can find this stuff online, but you're looking in for grommets, you're looking in for the nylon stitching is beginning to rip out. A lot of times in the back, and some of the newer ones, if they have that silicone or a rubber strapping back here where all your strapping goes through, kind of holds it together. It's got stress points that if it were under stress, it'd pull those out, and kind of like if you ever pulled plastic or bent plastic, let's say it's dark blue, and it kind of starts turning a light blue or a white, you can see where it's been put under pressure. Those are the kind of things you're inspecting, making sure all the buckles work, and if the snap hooks work, all that good stuff. Make sure they know how to inspect that, so that your life's on the line. Your life's on the line when you're wearing it, so make sure they know how to inspect those. And then also they got to make sure to know